Election, you guys, it's time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings, our careers, our next generations to come. Did you know that it is now a crime to be homeless? Pay attention. It's not a secret. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
Well, welcome everyone to the Courageous Truth Podcast. As always, I am honored that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today, and thank you for that dramatic introduction by Taj Raji Henson. I hope I got your name right, ma'am. She said and challenged us all to look it up. Look up Project 2025, and that's exactly what we're going to do today here on this episode of this podcast. But we're going to kick it back to her for just another comment, and then we'll come back and dive into this.
They are trying to bring the draft back. Who do you think they're going to draft first? I'm not trying to scare us. I'm trying to inform us. We got 3 Supreme Court seats up, you guys. We need those seats, or we have no protection. Okay, I got it out my system.
People are afraid right now, and I didn't even notice this until recently, until this last 2 weeks when I actually started hearing about Project 2025, and people were just freaking out. News anchors, all the different podcast influencers were talking about it. So I initially was like, well, I've got to look this up, because I always want to look things up. I don't want to just take things at face value. They're talking about, it's going to destroy the very fabric of our democracy, and they're using all these catchphrases and all these words, and they're hijacking language and all these things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and look this up, because the left is so afraid. The news media outlets are afraid. They're calling it Donald Trump's plan to bring fascism to America. And I thought, okay, let me take a look at what this actually is, and I'm going to make up my own mind and my own judgment about it. It was written in part by the Heritage Foundation with a lot of different organizations. And the number one thing I noticed about it when I went to the website, and you can find a link to this right in the show notes today, what I noticed first off the bat was transparency. This entire plan that they put together is completely transparent. It's there for everybody to see. And what I've noticed is the Democrats and the left, they don't like transparency. I'm not sure what kind of plan they have right now. They seem to have some kind of plan, but they're hiding it. They're not transparent with it. And if anything, it's very fluid. I went to college. I have a bachelor's degree in leadership. So I love things like organization, flow charts. I love job descriptions. The first thing I noticed when I got to Project 2025 is that it was a very organized document. It was very long, but it was very, very organized. And I love that. When you're putting together a business, or you're putting together a church or an organization or a nonprofit or whatever it is you're putting together, you want organization. You want people within that organization to know what their job description is and what it isn't. And if people don't know what they're supposed to be doing, they're going to run around like a chicken with their head cut off. They're going to run around bumping into each other. They're not going to get anything done. Here's what I will say, and it's going to be hard for people who or on the left or for the Democrats to agree with this, but our nation is in absolute chaos. Our nation is not organized at all. It is very, very obvious that those who are in the White House and in the State House, that it's absolute chaos. I believe people have forgotten what their job descriptions are, and they're using other organizations lower in the tier from them to maybe do the work for them or do things that they don't know, that maybe they don't have the authority to do, or they don't know they shouldn't be doing, or they should be doing. When you don't know your job description, someone's going to tell you, hey, do this, and you're going to go and do it because you don't know what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. So I loved this whole thing right out the gate because it was so thorough, it was so transparent, and it almost offers a breath of fresh air that really, honestly, what the Project 2025 is it's a roadmap for an effective conservative government, an effective government based upon the foundations of our republic, foundations of America. What should the president be doing? What should he not be doing? What does he have the authority to do? What does he not have the authority to do? What should each of the military branches be looking at? Our nation has just gone downhill and downhill and downhill, and no one seems to have a plan to bring it back up. But this, whether you like it or not, is at least a plan to get things back in order. And I've got a lot of notes that I'm going to be looking at here. And it's a 900-page document, or 850, 900-page document. And I'm going to hit just a very few things just to give you an idea of it. It would take me 2 weeks to read the whole thing. I really liked what I saw. I didn't read it super thoroughly, but I just kind of skimmed it. So I'm not going to talk about the things that I skimmed. But I am going to talk about the things that I uncovered about it that made it such a great document and great ideas. This project, talking about 2025, and I'm reading this off page Roman numeral XIV, it is based upon 4 pillars. And pillar number 1 is puts in place a consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed, and where disagreement exists, brackets out these differences for the next president to choose a path. So it takes all the federal agencies he's overseeing, offers some organization to them, and helps them to get them back on track so they're functioning in the capacity that they are supposed to be functioning in. And if the president comes in and he doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, then he's going to just kind of guess. Pillar number 2 is a personal database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and our coalition members to review and voice their recommendations. These recommendations will be collated and shared with the president-elect's team, greatly streamlining the appointment process. What this basically does is it gives normal citizens who are involved in this the voice and the right to speak into the next president's administration. Okay. By the way, we are a republic. Who is in charge? The people. The people are in charge of the republic, not the president. The president represents us. So we have every right to speak to him and offer him ideas and input and influence. Pillar number 3 is the Presidential Administration Academy is an online educational system taught by experts from our coalition. For the newcomer, this will explain how government functions and how to function in government. For the experienced, we will host in-person seminars with advanced training and set the bar for what is expected of senior leadership. You've got to be kidding me. This is the most brilliant idea that I've ever heard. It trains the citizenry on how the government should work. And it trains people how to work in the government. So how do we call our legislature? How do we get a hold of certain agencies if we're having a problem? How do we interact with that government? There is too big of a gap between the federal government and state government and the citizenry, and this aims to bring it back together with proper and healthy education. And then pillar number 4 is the playbook. We are forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move upon the president's utter of, so help me God. So they are working to support a conservative president, be it in 2024, I hope, or 2028, or whenever. They're making efforts to support the president to make sure that he has a game plan to do his job correctly. And that is through the accountability of the citizenry. And we can't hold our leaders accountable if we don't know what they're holding them accountable to. This is absolutely brilliant. I love that. And I'm just reading this out of the introduction. I'm going to read this too out of page 3 of the 2025 project. It says this: the Heritage Foundation is once again facilitating this work, but as our dozens of partners and hundreds of authors will attest, this book is the work of the entire conservative movement. As such, authors express consensus recommendations already forged, especially along 4 broad brands that will decide America's future. And this is what they are. Number one, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Yes, let's do that. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. Yes. And when it's returned to the American people are going to be educated on how to self-govern ourselves. Number three, defend our nation's sovereignty, our borders, and bounty against global threats. Yes, let's protect our nation. This is great. Number four, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. We should be free. We should be free to worship. We should be free to live and work and build wealth and build our homes and build our families and build our businesses and our communities and our passions. We should be free to do that. What makes these four, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to end it. What makes these four pieces of conservative promise so valuable to the next president is they cut through the superficial distractions and focus on the moral and foundational challenges America faces in this moment in history. There's so many distractions. The government is so unorganized and chaotic. This is going to bring now some sense of what the president should be doing when he's representing us, the people. So I'm going to now, very brief, I'm actually almost done. So that just kind of gives, you really have to go through it. You really have to go through it and take some time and read it. What I did is I just downloaded it on my laptop for free. You can buy it, but I downloaded it on my laptop so I can just go over the next couple months and just read it. And this project has been in development for decades. This is a decade-long project. So I believe that this is a great time that this thing is kind of being finished and focused. And since we have one central conservative candidate, his name is kind of being attached to this. But this is really a work of the people. This is a work of the people. A lot of people are afraid of this because I think why the Democrats and the left are so afraid of it is they're afraid of the organization, because it takes away the ability to be fluid and just make up things on the go and just make up new translations to the Constitution as it fits whatever agenda they got going on that month. But it really solidifies and makes things concrete for them. And like I said, it puts the power in the people. So I'm just going to, this is 5 sections. Sorry for that little echo, but section number 1 is taking the reins of the government. So it goes through and it says, what is the White House supposed to look like? How's it supposed to run? The executive office of the President of the United States. What is his job? What is he supposed to be doing? If I'm voting for a president and my tax dollars are paying his salary, what's he doing? I want to know. He should want the people to know. That's the kind of president I want. Central personnel agencies and managing the bureaucracy. So how do we manage all these agencies that have an impact on our lives, but we don't even know that they truly exist? Okay. And then the second section is the common defense. It takes a look at the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of the State, the intelligence community, media agencies, the Agency for International Development. And it takes a look at all those things. What are they really supposed to be doing? What are they doing now? And since what they're doing now is not healthy to our nation, how do we reform them? What steps do we need to take? And it offers all that, at least in as much as they can. Section number 3 is the general welfare of the people. So it takes a look at the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Education. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to read a few things about the Department of Education that it says here, and I believe it's on page 319. So if you're scrolling through, 319 is where the Department of Education starts, and then you can, read some of the things that I'm about to talk to you about in a little bit more detail. But what it says is, as the next administration executes its work, it should be guided by a few core principles. And we're talking about the Department of Education. Number 1 is advancing education freedom. Empowering families to choose among a diverse set of education options is key to reform and improve outcomes, and it can be achieved without establishing a new federal program. So right now they just want to build all these programs that cost all this money. But what this is proposing is, hey, let's get the freedom back in the people and let's allow parents and families and communities to decide what's best for educating their children and their young one. And then, of course, what I love next is a next principle would be providing education for federal children. And what this means is Congress has a special responsibility to children who are connected to military families, who live in the District of Columbia, or who are members of sovereign tribes, talking about our First Nation brothers and sisters. Responsibilities for serving these students should be housed in agencies that are already serving these families. Instead of organizing new agencies, let's put the right people in the right agency. Let's organize the agencies and let's organize the money. There's so much money being wasted in the Department of Education. It desperately needs reform. It goes on to say this: restoring state and local control over education funding. As Washington begins to downsize its intervention in education, existing funds should be sent to states as grants over which they have full control, enabling states to put federal funding toward any lawful education purpose under state law. So we don't have a federal Department of Education telling little school districts what they should be doing, so that it's more centralized so that needs can be met. This saves money, this saves times, and gives better education to everybody involved. And then finally, a couple last things it says, and I'm still in the Department of Education, it says safeguarding civil rights. Enforcement of civil rights should be based on proper understanding of these laws, rejecting gender ideology and critical race theory, which actually, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, but civil rights laws means that everybody has a right to an education and they shouldn't be discriminated based upon who they are or who they say they are. Okay, there should be no discrimination against anyone, even if you're, like, let's say, because that's what the DEI does, is it says we're going to make sure these people aren't discriminated while discriminating people who don't fit into those identity politics. Let's keep everybody the same and let's serve everyone equally without creating a bunch of, fictional race issues. And I'll just stop right there. And then finally, it says stopping executive overreach. Isn't that great? Congress should set policy, not presidents through pen and phone executive orders, and not agencies through regulations and guidance. This is saying that the Congress should decide monies and policies and whatnot that go into the. Sorry, I had to adjust my phone there, but that goes into the education system. It says, unlike the public sector bureaucracies, public employee unions and higher education lobby families and students do not need a Department of Education to learn, grow, and improve their lives. It is critical that the next administration tackle this entrenched infrastructure. Okay, basically what they're saying is we need to dissolve the Department of Education and kick back the rights and kick back the power to the local school boards and the local states, because it's just a waste of money. How can you, as a pastor, how can I have someone who's on the other side of the country tell me how I should run and lead my church? It's impossible. Or how I should run my business. Okay, those are just some thoughts from the Department of Education. I think it's really worth looking at. If you're not going to go through all of this, go through the Department of Education. Really read that. There's some graphs that go along with it. The American Heritage Foundation and their partners did a really great job. Then it talks about the Department of Energy and related commissions, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Housing and Urban Development, that really gives plans to really address the homeless issue that we're having in our nation. Department of the Interior, Department of Justice, Department of Labor and Related Industry. How many of you know the DOJ needs massive reform? It's been weaponized because nobody knows what it's really supposed to be doing. They forgot about it. And if they knew what their jobs were and they know who they were supposed to answer to, things might be a little bit different. That's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother time. And then finally, the Department of Transportation Department, of Veteran Affairs. Then it goes into the economy, Department of Commerce. What's that supposed to look like? What's the Department of Treasury supposed to be doing? The Federal Reserve, Small Business Administration, trade. All these different things are vital to the economy of our nation. We need them to be working in unison all across our nation and working for us, the people. And that's another thing. How is the economy supposed to work? The Heritage Foundation is putting together that school that will teach the citizens how it's supposed to run so we can hold our leaders accountable. And section number 5, independent regulatory agencies. Financial regulatory agencies, Federal Communications Commission, Federal Election Commission. Elections are important, and elections have been messed up by both sides. There's been fraud in every election going back to Abraham Lincoln. There always is. How do we clean those up? How do we make them free and fair? That's part of conservative, that everybody has the right to vote. Okay, if I don't like how who this person's voting for, that's my problem. They can vote for whoever they want. My job is to say, hey, look, this 2025 plan is a great plan that's going to benefit you and your family and your friends forever. And if we can hold to this plan, it doesn't matter who's the president, we can really have a great nation that's ran by you and me. And the president, they're just public servants. That's all they are. They're not our God. They're public servants. And then the Federal Trade Commission. And what I really love about this is there's strategies in there to really, and I read that a little bit, and that's on page 869, but more accountability and child protection online. So more accountability for media outlets and video outlets to, make sure that they're not putting child pornography online. Of course, it will, I'm sure, be impossible to police, but at least it brings it to the forefront and says, hey, we have a strategy to slow this down, to hold people accountable, to make sure that our children are safe online. Now, it would probably take about 20, 30 hours to go through probably even more, to go through everything in the 2025 project. But here's what I will say. It is a great plan, a great strategy. It's not perfect. It can't be perfect. It can't be perfect. But what it does is it returns the power to the people and educates the people and gives us the empowerment to choose the right leaders and to hold them accountable so that when they're not doing their job, we can tell them, hey, you're not doing your job according to what is written. Is it a conservative plan? Yes, it is a conservative plan. Shouldn't we have, as conservatives, a plan to run our nation? Look at what the lefts have done. Look at what the Democrats have done. Look at what the progressives have done to our nation. It's overrun with crime. It's overrun with homelessness. They don't have a plan. And if they do, it doesn't work. And if this is their plan, we don't want anything to do with it. And this is a transparent plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the 2025 project 2 thumbs up. Read it, look at it, take Tarije or Raji, or take the gal at the beginning that opened up this podcast. Take her advice and look it up. Look it up. It isn't a joke. It's serious. It's an amazing, amazing thing. So Project 2025 project, look it up online. The link is in the show notes, and God bless you. See, we can gather around this. This could bring conservatives together. This has been in development for a long, long time. Don't let the propaganda media distract you or turn you off. Go and read it for yourself. It is as someone who's owned a business and leads an organization, it was really, really well put together. Good job by the Heritage Foundation. Kudos. Appreciate you guys doing that. And let's look forward to a better America where we're free. God gave us this land to be free, and let's steward it like the sovereign God gave it to us. So anyway, all right, well, continue to take a courageous stand for the truth. Thank you for tuning in, working out all these videos. And I know you love seeing me and looking at my beautiful face. And the main thing is I hope it empowers you to take a courageous stand for the truth. Now's the time. We're coming up on a very big election in our nation, and I believe 40% of the world has presidential elections or big elections coming up. So we need to stay tuned for that. So like this, comment, subscribe, share it with your family and friends. Go to my Facebook page, Courageous Truth Podcast, share some of those videos. I'm just trying to grow this platform. I've had it for about 4 years and I've never really grown it, but I think now's the time. I think now's the time to grow it, and we'll see where it goes from here. And it really just starts from people like you all over the world who have just been listening and tuning in, and now it's time to grow it. So God bless you. Continue to take a courageous stand for the truth, and we will see you next time.